In this session, we will talk about how to adapt your Amazon advertising PPC strategy to accommodate different stages of your product lifecycle. So we will have two great experts sharing with you some strategies and tips and recommendations. It will be Vincenzo Toscano from Ecomsci Agency and George Meresa from Clear Ads Agency. And before we jump to the content, I wanted to mention that this session is sponsored by two amazing companies in the industry. The first one is Getida. They are a global leader in Amazon FBA reimbursements and auditing solutions. So they can help you to get money back from Amazon if you are selling on Amazon, if you're a seller. So contact them and they might get you free money, which Amazon is hiding from you. So check the link below in the description. And the second company is VAA Philippines. They help with virtual assistant services at any stage of your e-commerce journey. So even if you're selling outside Amazon, they might help you with different parts of your business, full-time, part-time, whatever you need. So check them out in the description. You will find the link. And this session is part of the Seller Fest Online virtual event, which we created to celebrate our 20 million subscribers on YouTube channel. No, I'm joking. It's not 20 million. It's just 20,000. And it's a nice milestone. And that's why we're doing these sessions for you. So if you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. And let's bring two guests of this session. It's Vincenzo and George. Hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
So,
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, have you subscribed to our channel already?
Yeah, 20 million. Congrats.
20 million in 1 and 2. All right. So, guys, before we jump to the slides, very short with a few words, please tell what you do. I think you are both doing very similar things and helping in similar ways. So, George.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. Hey, I'm George, founder of Clear Ads. We're an ad agency helping e-com brands primarily on Amazon through PPC, DSP, and now also helping full service when it comes to listings, just making sure ranking strategies as well on Amazon. And yeah, been going just over 13 years and based in London and work with a lot of brands in 7 to 8 figures a year revenue.
Cool. And Vincenzo?
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of Ecomsci. We're a full Amazon and Walmart brand management agency. We're also located in London, in the UK. And we specialize on effectively helping brands scale into these two marketplaces from A to Z. So PPC, listing optimization, creative, international expansion, DSP, whatever you need, we got it for you. So that's a little bit about us.
So Clear Ads is very clear. What does it mean, Ecomsci?
Ecomsci, actually, the name came to fruition because I was thinking I want to do essentially something that resembles e-commerce, but also that resembles agency. So I took the first letters of e-commerce and the last two letters of agency, combined Ecomsci.
Yeah. Now it makes sense, finally. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So yeah, George, we'll see you very shortly in 15-20 minutes. You will continue the presentation and I'm sharing Vincenzo's screen and let's go for it.
Yes. So guys, welcome. I'm very excited to do this presentation for you today. I think it's super important that you learn how PPC essentially evolves throughout your journey as a seller. I think a lot of sellers do the mistake that think that PPC is a set and forget thing, and that's definitely not the case. Your PPC is going to evolve over time, and you need to be mindful what are some of those phases you have to go through as a seller, because if you stay with essentially the campaigns that you use to launch your product and they don't evolve throughout how your product reacts to the market, that's why we see sellers struggling to really bring the product and the brand itself to the next level. So very quick about myself, as I said, founder and CEO of Ecomsci. I also have a podcast called The E-commerce Lab, where we bring some of the brightest minds, such as Augustus and George. On top of that, we got a team of over 40 people. As I said, we specialize on managing brands and scaling them on Amazon and Walmart. And currently, we manage over 9 figures when it comes to brands on Amazon and Walmart. So we do a lot of things when it comes to a strategy, and we have also done a lot of mistakes, which basically bring me to all the strategies I'm going to break down for you, which we have found that is working for the brands that we manage. So the strategy essentially that you have to understand throughout your journey as a seller is effectively there are cycles, of course, in terms of the launch, the scale, and profitability, right? When you're launching a product, essentially you have different objectives compared to profitability. And you need to be mindful that these are tailored to your PPC, because if not, the way you research keywords, the way you structure your campaigns, the way you decide budget, the way you do even optimization as a whole is completely different. And if you don't adapt it dynamically as you go through all this life cycle, you're gonna struggle. So the first one is launch. Usually for launch, we put it depending, of course, this is also gonna be depending on the market, but just as a rule of thumb, 4 to 6 weeks is usually what a launch should look like, right? This is essentially what we talk the honeymoon period. And this is going to be the period where Amazon essentially has not enough data around your brand, in this case, your product. And that's why you have to be very strategic about what keywords you put on your listing. And on top of that, the keywords that you target from a PPC perspective. So you create the link between how Amazon perceive your product. Because if you don't do that correctly from day one, essentially the keywords you start indexing, the keywords that you start ranking for are going to be not the correct ones. And we all know that the way you become profitable on Amazon is to basically make a very solid foundation when it comes to organic rank. Once we finish with the launch, we go into scale mode. That's where you start to identify which keywords work, which keywords don't work. And that's where you start to basically create all the different deploying of, okay, this is where my money has to go, and this is where my money has to be retracted because these keywords and these campaigns haven't been working. And finally, profitability is that once your organic ranking is very stable and you really understand where your product is thriving in terms of conversion, that's where we start really doubling down our efforts to make sure we bring your product to the next phase. So let's start with the launch phase, right? The launch phase essentially is all about ranking, guys. Because when you're launching a product, and I have this conversation all the time with sellers, people think that launching a product on Amazon, you're gonna be profitable from day one, and unfortunately, that's not the case. You need to basically invest into creating the asset, which in this case is the organic ranking. It's like when you open a shop, right? You need to invest on the location, on the furniture inside, the people. Here on Amazon, it's the same. You're creating the backbone of your business, which is going to set you for success. Therefore, your KPI that define basically the success of your launch is organic ranking. You need to be very strategic how you track your keywords. You need to make sure you understand what are those keywords and how your progress is basically evolving over this phase. Because if you're doing the launch phase and you see that your keyword ranking is not improving, regardless of the revenue is coming in, effectively we're doing everything wrong, because revenue without organic basically outcome is going to be meaningless for the future of your brand. And something that I get this question all the time, people say, okay, what is a tacos I should be aiming for? So usually when I'm on launch phase, I go over 50%. Now, these can be even more aggressive if I do things such as supplements. For example, going back, which I briefly mentioned, the launch phase is going to heavily depend on the country and the product. If you're doing, for example, supplements in the States, sometimes we are looking at launch phases of 6 months to 12 months. So that's why you have to be mindful sometimes that there are exceptions to the rule. Now, once we go into scale mode essentially is all about once we have identified, okay, we are getting organic ranking and we're basically starting to get to page 2 or to the bottom of page 1. It's all about tracking that market share. And this is something that actually my partner here, George Morse, is going to go in depth when it comes to brand analytics, because market share is the most important thing that you need to be mindful of. Doesn't matter if you're starting to increase your organic ranking, but then you're not getting enough clicks, you're not getting enough impressions, you're not getting enough add to carts, enough purchases, because those are some of the main signals that Amazon captures in the backend to basically keep the organic ranking of your product consistent. Now, at this phase of scale, that's where we start aiming towards break even. That's why my tacos range start to go between 20 and 30%, which is usually where you should be landing in terms of the margin of your product. Usually, for a product, I try to aim for at least 34% margin. But again, if yours is lower, you need to be mindful of how I'm going to basically adjust my scale mode into a point I'm going to reach break even as soon as possible. And finally, we have the profitability. Profitability phase is essentially when once you have a very healthy organic rank and once your market share is basically very healthy, you are pretty much competing with the top 5 in terms of impression share, click share, add to cart, and purchases. That's where where actually you need to focus on making sure that your PPC in terms of the CPC and where you're putting the money in terms of the campaigns is very tailored, because that's where it can break or make the profit in the sense that you're going to have a bunch of keywords that even if you are highly ranked organically or you have a high market share, you're going to find they're never going to be profitable for you. And that's why you have to be very strategic in terms of deciding which keywords I'm going to keep pushing and which keywords I have to sacrifice in order for my product to be profitable. Now, the launch structure is divided into 5 main type of campaigns, which I'm going to go into. So the discovery, the research, the performance, the ranking, and the brand. The discovery is essentially automatic campaigns. These campaigns are going to allow me to effectively identify new terms, which are then going to move into research campaigns, which are my broad match type of keywords, which then these are going to validate the performance keywords. The performance keywords are those that are pretty much super relevant to my product, and they effectively define what my product is, and therefore the intent toward purchase is very high. But then from performance, you're going to identify those 5 to 10 keywords that are for pure ranking strategy, those that you have to be there to be a successful seller within that niche. And finally, we have the brand categories, which is the ones that we use to protect our brand and also to make sure that we attack our brands that are also into launch phase or into a specific position where we are more competitive than them. Now, when it comes to the PPC structure, the way I divide this is you're going to see a couple of campaigns are launched on day 1 or are launching day 14. Why I do this? If you remember when I was explaining the launch strategy, you saw basically the time frame of usually 4 to 6 weeks. But something you also have to be mindful is when the honeymoon period really starts to kick in. From day 1, usually what we have identified, if you start launching broad campaigns, phrase campaigns, auto campaigns from day 1, Amazon has no idea about what is the basically relevancy between your product and a specific category node, which in this case is what defines what your product is showing on Amazon. Therefore, we want to start with a performance or ranking campaigns from day 1, which are going to be only exact match, because we know for a fact which are the keywords that effectively our competitors are getting sales from, which you can do this by reverse async, by multiple tools that you can find out there. Once you find those top 10, 15 keywords, those are the ones I'm going to go for the first week full on, because I want to basically show to Amazon, these are my keywords and these are the ones I need you to create a link between what my product is and what I want to achieve from my PPC performance. Now, you have to be very mindful, guys, that this part of the strategy can also fail if you haven't done a good job from a listing optimization point of view. Because whatever you do from a point of copy and from the point of what category you're putting in the backend of your listing and how you also optimize the backend is what is going to define if the keywords are indexed in the first place and if Amazon starts to show you for this specific keyword. So also these initial 2 weeks, you can see them as a testing phase to make sure that your listing is performing correctly. Once you start getting the relevancy link, and you can see how here I put the example of ranking keywords for a yoga mat, is definitely yoga mat is the main keyword, but the relevant keywords will be something such as exercise mat. It's definitely a keyword that is relevant for me and I want to go exact, but it's not as strong as the one I need to rank 100%. Once this starts to happen, then we activate after 2 weeks, essentially the research and discovery. Why do we do that? Because by then you're gonna essentially find within your PPC dashboard that Amazon now identifies which are the keywords that relate to your product. In fact, if you do this trial right now and you're gonna launch a product, you're gonna find that if from day 1 you try to launch a broad phrase or campaign or even an Excel, you're going to see that the suggested tab is empty. That means because Amazon has no data at all, which that's why we want to wait 14 days. So by the time we launch our broad campaigns or auto campaigns, there's enough information in the algorithm about how the product is perceived. And therefore, these campaigns can be more effective to you. And the final one is the brand one. So the brand campaign, we use it for do things mainly. The first one is defensive strategy. Guys, when you're launching a product on a category, if there are Amazon sellers that know the game, they're going to attack you. They're going to attack you from a sponsored product, async targeting campaign with sponsor display ads under the buy box, under the bullet points at the top of the product details page. And they're basically going to take as much placement within your listing as possible because they know you're new. Most likely you're going to do external traffic. Most likely you're going to do aggressive PPC, but you have no reviews. So they know they have an advantage. Therefore, we need to cover those loopholes within our listing with our own ads if your catalog is big enough. Therefore, we don't allow our competition to eat that initial traffic that is so essential for your brand. And then, of course, also from an aggressive point of view, we can also attack other brands that we are more competitive from a pricing perspective, from a feature perspective, even from a content perspective, because maybe our brands looks much more premium or resembles a better message in terms of what we're trying to give them as an experience. Now, here I wanted to create this screen for you guys because for me, it's very important that you get away with actionable steps. What I wanted to break down for you is how effectively I will do the campaigns. In this case, I took as an example the yoga mat, which, as a disclaimer, don't sell this product, is very competitive. Essentially, as you can see in the screen, is how I will create the campaigns. We have the performance ones, which we have only exact. And when it comes to bits, we usually use dynamic bits down only, right? You don't want to use up and down because especially on keywords that go exact on performance that are not super relevant for ranking, it can get very expensive. And you can see how I limit this to only 5 keywords per campaign. You're gonna find, go right now to your PPC dashboard, go to campaigns where you have more than 5 keywords, and I can guarantee you that after 5 to 10 keywords max, most of the spend is basically diluted. There's nothing after that, because what happens is that when you create campaigns, if you don't do proper segmentation based on search volume and relevancy, if you put a keyword that has 10,000 search volume with a keyword that has 1,000 search volume, the 10,000 search volume is going to dilute and get all the budget for himself, right? Therefore, you want to make sure that you segment the keywords not only by quantity, but ideally by search volume. Okay, so you want to have your 10,000 search volume keywords on its own, a 5,000 search volume, 1,000 search volume. Usually I keep at least a ratio of 5 difference between a search volume. So you don't want to have 1,000 search volume with 5,000. And then here I give you some example how you can name them. So once you jump on your specific PPC dashboard, it's not a spider web as I see every single time I jump on some Amazon seller accounts that you don't know what is going on here. You know, this campaign is performance, is targeting this keyword, this campaign is ranking, and you can make very strategic decisions on the fly about how to optimize. Ranking similar than performance. The main difference here, guys, is as you can see on my explanation of how I set up these campaigns, I put only 1 keyword per campaign and then I go top of the search. You might ask yourself, why top of the search? Top of the search, if you're very strategic and shown that keyword, you have done a very good job from an image perspective, also a very good job from a listing perspective. And on top of that, you start basically showing on top of that keyword and you start getting click-through rate and sales. That from a signal perspective to Amazon is one of the things that's going to rank you the fastest. In fact, with brand analytics, which I'm sure then George is going to give you some insights, that is some of the things you have to monitor. Like you need to make sure that as you start ranking on these keywords, you start getting basically similar performance that your main competitors. And that's going to be basically your guidance that if you actually move in the right direction or not. Then you have research, which research we only do broad. We put 5 keywords on the campaign and it's only for research purposes, as the name basically explains, to then discover winning keywords for performance and ranking. Then we have discovery. Discovery is essentially a way for us to find low-hanging fruit, guys. Long-tail keywords, keywords that are sometimes are very specific that sometimes even software can identify. And what you want to do with your auto campaigns is you want to make sure you also divide them, right? So you want to have your close related one, your loose match, and all the different type of auto campaigns on its own. So one type of auto campaigns per campaign, you're going to have therefore 4 campaigns, because that is going to allow you, first of all, to make sure each of those type of auto targeting have its own space to perform. But beyond that, once you start optimizing, it's going to be much easier for you to do negation of keywords, moving keywords to the research ranking and performance. And on top of that, sometimes with auto, we can also leverage placement optimization. Finally, we have brand. Brand is essentially, as I told you, attack and defense. So as you can see here, I will choose attacking ASINs that have a higher price. I will attack basically my own products that I have my own catalog to cover all my different placement within my listings. And another thing I will also do is defend my branded keywords. So for example, in this case, the brand is balanced from. If I know I'm going for the yoga mat keyword, I will be targeting keywords such as balance from yoga mat, balance for exercise mat, and so on, because most likely an Amazon seller that knows its game, most likely is going to target me as well on my branded ones, because they might know I'm doing maybe influencer marketing or external traffic, things that will resemble my brand terms, and they might want to steal the traffic from it. And the other thing you also want to do is not only attack agents that have a higher price than you, but attack ASINs that have basically a new listing. You can do this with so many tools. You can see the creation date of the listing, try to find the top 20, 30 listings that were created in the last 6 months. Most likely they're in the same baseline than you, and you can leverage that to basically have a better conversion. And the final one at the bottom, as you can see, you want to have one portfolio per product and one campaign per phase. So this is going to allow you to have even more segmentation and structure within your PPC dashboard to be able to optimize as effectively as possible. Here, just some examples of what I mean when we do brand tag. You can see here at the keyword level, in this case, let's say we're attacking Energizer, right? When somebody looks Energizer, we're showing there as tenables at the top with a sponsor brand banner campaigns. And the other one on an ASIN level, somebody's, for example, looking for Duracell, we attack with a brand Energizer as a sponsor product targeting campaign, right? Here, another example, defense. For this specific listing for Duracell, you can see when anybody looks for Duracell, they are defending every single placement across the board. So Duracell is making sure other brands such as Energizer is not taking traffic from them. And at the ASIN level, you can see how Energizer is pretty much controlling all the sponsored products at the bottom. So you created what we call the brand loop effect, which is that is going to be one of the most important things to ensure the traffic doesn't drop. In fact, a way you can dissect this, if you go to your brand analytics and you see you have a lot of impressions, a lot of basically clicks, and then significantly drop in add to carts and purchases, usually it might be that you're losing a lot of the attention on your listing because you're being heavily attacked. Here, video campaigns, guys, I usually don't do this from at the very beginning because this can be usually not as effective. You don't have enough reviews, but this is something that we have identified that as you start getting your initial reviews, usually by month 2 or 3, video campaigns can be also a very powerful type of campaign throughout your phase of selling, because a lot of categories, you're going to be surprised, this is kind of like a blue ocean. What I mean by that, a lot of the competitors you are going to be competing with, they're not leveraging video campaigns, and that means as PPC is a bidding system, less people bidding, that means it's a cheaper placement compared to sponsored products, which is what most people are doing. Now, the launch phase is something you also, I basically break down for you. Is the first one, as I said, you want to find all your competing keywords, and with those competing keywords, guys, you need to make sure your listings are also optimized. As I say, if you find the best keywords and you put the best PPC campaign, but your listing is not tailored toward that specific keyword in terms of indexation and placement throughout the listing, which also has a strategy in terms of if you put them on the title, you put it on the bullet points, if you put on the description, we all know that have different weights, so you have to be mindful of that. Phase 2 is essentially once we are already have a full optimization, we've been doing all the structure of campaigns I just explained to launch your product. That's where KPIs are going to be basically the answer to where you have to go, because based on what happens with clicks, impression, ROAS, click to rate, which is something you get not only your PPC dashboard, but also your brand analytics, that is going to allow you to tailor your PPC and optimization to head in the right direction. And finally, phase 3 and 4 is effectively what I explained in detail in the last slides. You're going to be launching your auto campaigns, your broad campaigns. You're going to get those keywords. You're going to move them into manual. Then once you find it into manual, you're going to find the keywords that work and don't work. You go into scale mode, and that's where we enter into profitability mode. Now, here high level, that's usually what I recommend, guys, in terms of optimization. So effectively, you're going to move keywords from your discovery to the performance campaigns. Then you're going to move your keywords from the performance, in this case, that are exact. You're also going to scale them into research and ranking. Then the other one is adjusting based on performance. That's a very important one, number 3, because I feel a lot of people, when they do a bid optimization, sometimes they do it blindly. They do it 10% up, 5% down, 15% up. You need to understand what is the CPC you can afford in the first place. And there's a very easy way of calculating this. You can go online and find a CPC calculator. And then you just identify how to calculate the ideal CPC based on your margin. And that's how you know how much you can afford for a keyword. Then negation. Negation is super important, because what you need to be mindful of is that as you start essentially identifying keywords on your research, right? You and on your research and your other campaigns, a lot of them are not going to perform. So you need to negate them, because if you don't, broad and auto campaigns can get super unprofitable very fast. And the final one is making sure you basically optimize your campaigns based on organic ranking. If you don't do that, you can fall into the trap of doing keyword cannibalization, which is if you're already very high organically on certain keywords and you're effectively not showing, you're already also showing there very high on top of the search, sometimes you're eating your own traffic. So you need to be mindful of monitoring that to make sure you put your efforts where you're effectively not as strong yet. The final thing is avoid these mistakes. So putting more than one keyword matching the same one. So for example, combining exact phrase and bro in the same campaign, that's one of the worst things you can do. Don't do that. Only being limited to sponsored products. Go beyond that, like explore sponsor brand with video, with a custom image campaign, banner campaigns. Sponsor display can be super powerful if you have a product that can be retargeted or based on behavior or based on specific categories. Also, the other mistake is what I just explained, not negating keywords and asins, and basically not knowing what are the keywords that you need to fully remove from your strategy. That is going to allow you to basically stop the bleeding. And the final one is budget. Budget is another thing that I find a lot of time people not being leveraging correctly, in the sense that you're going to find that your campaigns start to run out of budget very fast sometimes. And if you're not very dynamic into moving the budget from campaigns that are underperforming to campaigns that are performing, very fast you can become essentially unprofitable, because you're not putting your efforts where you're going to have the 80-20 rule. It's going to give you the best outcome, right? Final one is another thing. Some of the tips is you want to make sure when you're launching, guys, you want to have as many sales as possible, right? This also goes combined with conversion, right? Which is what I was mentioning in terms of tracking your KPIs, because this is what is going to set you for success in terms of organic, which is going to bring you to the profitability phase. Therefore, what you want to do is, as I mentioned at the launch phase, take advantage of the honeymoon period, the initial 30 to 50 days, where Amazon give you the benefit of the doubt. They don't really understand your product in depth, and therefore they're going to give you the possibility to get positioned faster so you can prove yourself. And if you do a good job with images, pricing, and offering, you're going to stick the landing. And the other thing is you need to be effectively mindful of ACOS, right? Something that I see people doing a normal mistake is they start launching on Amazon, they start getting very high ACOS and TACOS, and they get terrified. But that's because the way they track success is only based on monetary KPIs, like, okay, how much money I'm making. But guys, remember, you need to build the foundation. It's not about making money now. It's about building the structure that's going to set me for success towards the future. Therefore, don't panic and start turning the right keywords off. As long as the KPIs are showing good progress in terms of organic ranking and in terms of conversions, you're going in the right direction. Okay? And finally, make sure these 4 points are under control. Like listings, if you have the wrong image, conversion is going to drop and you're going to ruin your organic ranking. If your copy is wrong, you're not going to index, you're not going to rank organic for the right keywords, and therefore you're not going to be profitable. If you don't basically tailor strategies with your reviews, like leveraging Amazon Vine or doing strategies with variations and things like that to get as much as possible, you're going to struggle. Pricing, if you don't put an offer that is irresistible from day one, that effectively is going to remove that barrier of entry for a person to trust your brand on top of a don't play, you're going to struggle. If your product design is not on point, like you're only copy pasting a product from Alibaba and you're not doing anything on top of it, you can have the best PPC strategy, but why would I choose you when I have our seller with 2,000 reviews selling exactly the same? Demand. There is no point bringing to Amazon the product the best material if nobody's looking for the product from a keyword perspective. On Amazon, you're selling keywords, you're not selling products. Therefore, if your focus is only about product innovation, but you don't do your research in advance that there is enough demand, you're going to struggle. And the final one, inventory. All this will go to waste if we have a successful launch and we get profitable and everything. Your inventory basically depletes, you go out of stock. By the time you get back, guys, essentially you need to restart this whole phase from zero. So make sure you're mindful of these points, because otherwise all the hard work you're doing on PPC eventually is going to go to waste. Yeah. So that's it from me, and thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vincenzo. We have a few questions, but we'll bring them later after George's presentation. So thank you, Vincenzo. See you in a few minutes. And George, we're ready to continue with your tips.
Okay, brilliant. So Yeah, thank you so much, Vincenzo. So Vincenzo focused more on the theory side of kind of Amazon PPC, and I'm going to kind of give some more practical points as to what you can do to kind of get more out of your advertising on Amazon. Let me just click here. So this is the structure I'm going to follow for these slides. I'm going to focus on pre-launch, launch, scale, and profit. I just wanted to add this section on in pre-launch because Amazon's providing you now with so much more information as to what potential there are for certain keywords, which you should really consider before going to launch any term. So a lot of our the big brands that we work with, this is definitely an area a lot of time is spent and effectively could save you a fortune in the future, ensuring you don't go into the wrong areas. So when it comes to the pre-launch, I mean, there's the obvious data dive, product opportunity explorer. You should really be utilizing to find out, okay, what are some of the best selling products within that particular category, what they're doing, what terms that they're appearing for. If you can, I would definitely recommend having that listing of the product that you want to start to promote added to Amazon so that you can get access to search query data. You have to obviously be brand registered for that. But if you are and you've already got a bunch of existing products that are working well, you can kind of add that category in. Doesn't have to have inventory for it, and we can start to get this information. If you can do that, then that's a massive added bonus. So another thing to do as well is once you've kind of got a good list of keywords that you want to target, you want to basically type into Amazon, use Helium 10 to find out, okay, what browse nodes do those keywords appear under? So just like Vincenzo alluded to earlier, if you start with auto campaigns, you run the risk of Amazon mistaking your product for another category and putting you into the wrong category or referring you to something different. So Amazon now is going way more into semantic relevance. So it's looking at, okay, what is this product? What does it mean? What are they selling? So you really want to firstly don't use auto campaigns to start with when you're ranking the products, but also you want to ensure that the majority of the keywords or all of the keywords that you're going to target are basically targeting the kind of terms that you want to, that products appear in that right category. So you really want to do that. Something else that we also like to do is we like to look at the 3 best-selling products for a particular keyword and see, okay, over time, what have they been? So this is just giving you an example of like garlic press. If you're looking at that over a period of a few weeks, you can see, okay, here's the kind of top 3 products and what they've been in terms of what people are looking at. So this will give you a really good indication of how the images are being laid out, what type of product is converting the best and producing the most sales over time. I'm sure there's better examples out there where you're going to see more variety, but this will give you some really good insights. I've just used Data Rover and Sellerize to kind of put this into a Google Sheet to understand over a week-by-week period, but you can get this information on brand analytics too. So that's that. And then like something to also start to do some research and due diligence on is, okay, what other ASINs are there that are selling the products that you want to sell? Start to compile a list. So when you do launch, you also have those terms as well. And this is the process in which you can go and get this list, so you can start attacking from the get-go. Because if someone does click on another product, another ASIN, finds your product below and purchases off your product, it's more juice. And it's going to work way more in your advantage. And then Product Opportunity Explorer. Everyone has access to this. The moment you get a Seller Central account, if you go under growth, you'll find Product Opportunity Explorer. And just to give you this example, if you were to sell a dog poop bag, and already this shows you that large dog poop bags is where there's been growth over the last 180 days. So this might actually start to determine the variations of products that you're going to launch, the sizes, or just maybe what content you use and the type of images you use. So definitely worth just taking a glance at this and seeing, okay, what group of terms are actually seeing good growth So once you've got an idea of kind of the macro growth, and this is all Amazon data as well, it's not third party, so it's going to be as accurate as it gets. You also want to look at insights for a particular group of keywords. So with this particular product, I'm still looking at the dog poop bags. It gives you a good idea of, okay, how many products are there that receive more than 90% of the clicks within that particular category? And you can see here it's about 18, 19. Over time, has it increased? Has it decreased? Why do you think it's decreasing? So it's just showing it's decreasing. So it gives you a good understanding of, okay, how many people are you going to be competing against? That's the first thing to look at. On top of that, you also want to look at more brand clicks. So what are the top 5 brand click share? So what are the top 5 brands that have the majority of the click share? So you can see here that it's an alarmingly high number. So if it's below 50%, then that's good, because it means there's no one really dominating sales, no particular ASIN. But on this occasion, you can see here, it's going to be really hard to kind of get organic rank. It's going to be very difficult to see organic rank stick with PPC efforts. So using this information, like I said earlier, can really save you some money, because you can really understand before you really put money down, start ordering inventory, what to expect. And then the next section is launch. So, I mean, just giving you a kind of a really high overview of how we do things. It's like there's 2 components that we're always looking at. So one is, okay, conversion rates, what can be done to get a higher conversion rate than the average, and then the sales velocity. So what is the number of sales that your main competitors get per day? And this is going to determine how much budget you need. This is going to determine how fast you can rank, especially if there's 1 or 2 ASINs that receive the majority of the sales. It's going to be even harder to kind of push through and get the rank. So launch. So we have more than 4 phases, but I just wanted to give you this visual idea of what we would do here. So when we're looking at the launch phase, and this is why search query data would be really helpful as well, we'd look at phase 1 keywords. So we're looking at here relevancy, but more importantly, any terms that get less than 5,000 search volume a month. These terms are likely to be less competitive and less of a focus from most. So it's kind of going to be more low-hanging fruit. You can also use these terms and update your listings. So you kind of add in these kind of terms around your listings to give Amazon an idea of what you're looking for. And then once you've gone from phase 1, you move on to phase 2, which is any terms with sub 10,000 views a month. Now, you moving from one phase to another is going to be factored over 2 things. So the first thing is, okay, how quickly can you see organic rank throughout the phases? So if you see relatively quick rank improvements within phase 1, then it's going to be a good opportunity to move to phase 2. So depending on what kind of conversion rates you achieve compared to your compared to the average, and how many add to carts and sales, this is going to determine the speed of it. So that's the first thing. The second thing here to bear in mind is the spend. So how much spend will you be putting in place for this? We do actually have a sheet that we use to figure out, okay, with those terms, roughly how much money you need to achieve the daily sales. So if you have access to search query data, you're able to see per keyword how many sales is achieved. So then this will give you, this is kind of insights we work with. So we know roughly we need to get X amount of sales a day to kind of not only see the rank improvements, but deem it a success. So that's kind of what we do here. And if added bonus, so if you are launching TikTok and Facebook ads, are known to send social signals to Amazon as to, at times they'll think it's going viral. So it will help accelerate the speed at which you rank. And ultimately it's going to, even if it adds more add to carts, it's going to work towards your favor. If you have already a good group of products that you sell, and especially if you're selling like supplements or food items, then using DSP ads to target already loyal customers to then purchase your product is going to be a really good strategy, because that's going to ultimately get you the sales needed and the add to carts to start building a profile for that ASIN to start to get it to rank. So that's going to help a great deal. Another thing to bear in mind as well is if you've got a good presence offline and there's a lot of people who are searching for your brand name, then something else to consider doing is adding keywords around your brand name for that new ASIN. So when that new ASIN, when that branded search is done, it's that new ASIN that's viewed, because if you can get the sales velocity up on that new ASIN, it's gonna have a tremendous improvement on ranking. So, and anything else you have, and if you've got a mailing list, Facebook groups, I mean, if you can link this up with the launch phase, it's gonna work towards your favor. And then scaling. So once you've launched, once you start to establish some good rank improvements, then the next stage is going to be scaling. And definitely would recommend having some sort of tracking in place to see where your rank is improving and where it's going. Data Rover is one that we always kind of look at to see, okay, where is there been good movement, and kind of look to push further in the right places. So I mean, search query data is going to give you a good idea, because if there's a term that's got a few thousand units of sales a month and you're getting only 1% of the sales, and there might be scope to push there. But if you've got 70% sales on a keyword that gets 20 or 30 sales a month, then it might be worth now trying to push elsewhere. And once you've got good improvements and a good amount of data to show, okay, here's where you're doing well, then we'd recommend moving over to sponsored brands. And when you do move over to sponsored brands, we'd recommend targeting exact match first, and if needed, go to phrase match. We'd really recommend not using broad match with sponsored brand campaigns, especially kind of at the start. So do that, and you've got the data that works. So you already know, okay, which keywords do your products already convert well for. Take that information and use it. You should also, by this stage, have an understanding of which ASINs convert well for you. So which competitor ASINs. And so if you know which competitor ASINs you convert well for, you can take it a step further, and you can use, if you have access to DSP, Amazon DSP, or sponsored display ads to target not only on the page where people are looking at your competitors' products, but also those who have looked at your competitors' products, haven't purchased, and are elsewhere. So this is likely to kind of, again, add to sales velocity, which is what you're really looking to do. Tools are crucial. We've really been pushing tools further over the last few years, just because it allows you to automate a lot of things that you're not able to do as well within the Amazon interface. So for example, if you're seeing a certain goals being hit, so you're getting really good conversion rates, you're getting a good ACOS, you can just put the rules in place where the campaigns will be automatically adjusted. So whether it's bids or budgets, there are some features on Amazon that allow you to do this, but it only works one way. So you're only able to increase. So you can also do this the other way as well. So if you start to see a reduction, it's definitely worth doing. So you might see a decline in performance because there's your biggest competitors put on a ridiculous promotion, for example. So it's going to have an impact. So you want your campaigns to be adjusted accordingly. Or on the other side as well, like we had one extreme example of an eyelash product that we were selling. The majority of their competitors got taken down from Amazon because of an ingredient they used, which meant we had really good conversion rates, really low ACOS, and because we had the rules in place, it was able to kind of automatically just increase everything without before we even found it. So it just allowed us to be a little bit faster. Day parting is definitely a must. So like over time, we'll figure out where are you generating most of your sales? Are there particular times of the day or days in the week where you generate most of the sales? And if there is, then let's focus on having your products appear there at the top of search, especially for certain terms that convert really well, to really help. And then lastly, placements as well. So once as long as you have campaigns structured well, so preferably like single keyword campaigns. You can start to automate. Okay, where are you getting the best conversion rates? Where are you getting the best results in terms of sales? And then start to kind of optimize those campaigns for that. So so that's good to use them. And going back to the point I made earlier, conversion rates are so important, and you can use search query data to identify, okay, out of all the keywords that we're targeting, where are we getting a higher conversion rate than the average category conversion rate? And then once you understand where the higher conversion rates are, start to move more of your budget there. So push more of your budget there, reduce places where you're getting a lower than average conversion rate, because by doing this, you're more like you're going to increase the sales velocity of your product, and you're going to be able to stick organically in more places as well. So keep an eye on the search query data weekly as well, because you'll find random opportunities that will pop up, especially if you're doing good volumes of, if you're getting good volumes of searches for your particular ASIN. So definitely worth looking into this. This is literally just extracted from search query and put into a Google Sheet, and just create a basic formula to kind of put this together. And then lastly, profitable, being profitable. So you scaled, you've seen good results, and now it's kind of, you want to see the fruits of your labor. So in terms of sponsored keyword rank, at this point, there's going to be certain terms where you don't necessarily need to rank for sponsored ads in position 1. So you might get just as good of a results in position 3. So there's scope to reduce your budget, and the only way you're going to figure this out is by adjusting and putting rules in place to see how it pans out with different different positions. And this is again why it's important to have single keyword campaign target, single keyword campaigns in your account. That way you can really do controlled experiments to understand and figure this out. There's going to be some categories where it's just so extremely competitive, it's not worth kind of reducing too drastically, because you can start, you could lose velocity. And if you've got the bestseller badge, anything like that, you have to be even more careful, because if it's going to lose, if you do something extreme like this, loses you the badge, then it could, it's not going to be easy to get it back. You have to spend a lot more to get that back. Another thing to bear in mind is you should over time start to see the percentage of sales that come from organic increase. Once you are got the products established, you're starting to get good organic rank. This is when you can start to push back slowly on paid ads, ensuring that you don't lose velocity. I know I keep saying this just because it's important, and ideally you want to start with terms that have a low search volume when reducing this. So definitely something to look into and be careful of when pushing back. You also want to just keep track of TACoS instead of ACoS, because like I mentioned, if you've got a particular ASIN that's got an ACoS higher than what you want, but the TACoS is still profitable, then you really have to ask the question, achieving that TACoS, is it worth reducing total sales and also running the chance of losing some rank on certain terms? We've seen a lot of people take the ACoS versus TACoS approach and cause a lot of damage in their account. And once you start to lose the organic rank, you're going to have to spend even more money to try and get back to where you were. So just be careful with that. And then you really want to also be looking at margins in a bit more detail as well. From the beginning, but especially at this stage, if you're wanting to kind of look at profit. So if you're using tools like Scale Insights and PackView, they have this information already in there. So lots of good stuff in there that you can use. But ultimately, if you're not, you can use tools like Sellerboard or IntentWise. Sellerboard is kind of the easy and very user-friendly and well-priced product. But if you're doing DSP and PPC and you want to look at some more in-depth reports, then IntentWise would definitely be a good place to go when doing that. And this is just an example of seller board. So you can see here, you're going to get way more information here than you do with just the ads console on Seller Central, because you're going to see information about regarding refunds, and you can obviously add information about cost of goods. And please do update this yourself, because if you don't, you could be working with the wrong data when you're kind of measuring the profit. But this is I'm sure most of you are doing this, but if not, then definitely this is a fundamental thing, especially at this stage here when you're making very careful decisions about where to move budgets around to optimize your accounts, get the best results. And another thing is, once you start getting a good amount of sales, there's going to be more and more low hanging fruit. So with this particular example, you can see here there's almost 250,000 people who've picked your product, picked this particular product, but just never finished and made a purchase. So there's a few things you can do with this. So firstly, you can kind of use brand tailored promotions to create specific promotions for those who haven't purchased yet, and this is likely to get them to follow through and buy. So if you spent all that money on ads already, you might as well just spend a little bit more to get this, and this is more than likely to be profitable. So definitely something to bear in mind. And so that's one thing you could do. You could take it a step further and use Amazon DSP to target this audience, to ensure that ads are served to them more often too. So that's something you could do. And with this promotion, it's just a double whammy. So more likely to get the sales. And then one area we just noticed a lot of people don't look at is when you look into growth opportunities. There's a lot there where you can go in and actually find actual insights that Amazon has in terms of how you can increase your sales. I would just recommend being very careful with the display ads recommendations, because they're going to really push for you to spend money there, and they're going to give you some data that looks very attractive. But I would just be careful with that, but definitely a good place to be. And really, that's it from us. Thank you so much for listening. You can scan Vincenzo's link on the left-hand side, and you've got Vincenzo's email and website, ecommerce.com, to get your 30 minutes free consultation. So definitely worth speaking to him about that. And then on the right-hand side, there's my email and website, and you can scan mine too, and it's got access to website inquiring. And for the next 24 hours, we've made our school community free as well. So if you want to join, there's a lot of high-level sellers there. If you've got any questions, if you want to access to any of our special material, this is only for e-commerce brands. It's free, and then it goes up to $150 a month after tomorrow. So feel free to join that too.
So where do people join for the school community? I don't see the link because this...
If you scan the code...
Your code,
yeah. Within the code, there's a link tree.
Okay. Clear Ads Community is called the link. Okay. All right. So thank you very much. I have a very important live question, because at the beginning we clarified what is Clear Ads and what is Ecomsci. And then you will bring this nice presentation where it's like Ecomsci and Clear Ads. So the question is, Ecomads or ClearSea?
We switch around.
Okay, so
that's a cool name, ClearSea.
Ecomads. I like Ecomads. It's clear.
Yeah, Ecomads is good. I'm sure the trademark behind that must be thousands.
Yeah. So let's do ClearSea. Okay. All right. So before we move on with questions, we have few. I wanted to mention that as part of the virtual summit, which is called SellerFest Online, we also prepared a VVP package. We worked with all the speakers who are presenting in this event, and all of the speakers sent us additional video, which is additional strategy, additional deep walkthrough of something or a template this year. And I know that George colleague sent a video to us. George, do you know what Matt presented in his video?
No, so I was away, but you guys, like, whatever he presented is going to be like 20 times better than what I
So
can
it's a
present.
complete product launch blueprint. So, and Matt Altman is, a lot of people want to see him speaking.
He knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
and Vincenzo, can you share what you provided in the VP video?
Yeah, so essentially a shared strategy in terms of how we are using a technique when it comes to launching products, so we can effectively skyrocket your organic ranking. So something we've been using through our strategy is augmented reality. We have discovered essentially that by using augmented reality on your listing, and we have case studies about that, Amazon pushes your rank higher than competitors that don't have it. And beyond that, given the prompt that people get on their app, on their phone when scrolling and getting the prompt of augmented reality, that will spike your click-through rate, and that click-through rate with a specific amount of sales will get you rank faster on those specific keywords. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. And those who want to get access to this package, just follow the link below and you will get it. So it looks like this, the page. All right, so let's do a few questions. Let's start from the first one. Laura was asking, if we need to reset an existing listing that Amazon has miscategorized, should we stop all campaigns and do another launch?
Yeah. You wanna go, George? Or should I go?
You go first. You go first.
Okay, so I mean, usually what we do when there is an issue of the category, usually the fastest way to fix it is with a flat file. Essentially, what we do is we download the Browse tree category guide, where we can see what are the exact node we have to use on a flat file to be using the right one for your listing. And usually, if we see that by you manually trying to change it to the traditional dashboard that doesn't work, we delete the listing, wait 24 hours, and they will upload it with a flat file. And then when it comes to launching the PPC and everything again, it also depends at what stage it is happening. If it happens very early on, usually we can save the launch. But if it happened very late and then you also went out of stock and things like that, we might decide to launch a new listing altogether. So this question doesn't have a perfect answer, because depending on the phase that happened, sometimes from a financial point of view, it makes more sense to keep it or launch a new one. Yeah. Essentially, what I was mentioning regarding PPC is that, of course, the success of your PPC is going to be depending heavily on your listing, right? So just to go back on what I was saying, it's a tool that is meant to enhance your success on Amazon. If your product research is essentially not on point, and you bring a product to market that is not unique in terms of, you did something different from a feature perspective, from a presentation perspective, the packaging, the pricing, all the things that surround a successful product, everything that we've been talking today so far, is not going to be working for you, because PPC is there to, once you have a successful product, in the essence of the offer is to make sure the offer gets in front of as many eyes as possible. That could be essentially into a motivational mode in terms of wanting to buy your product, and we make the sell. So that's why you need to make sure not only the product is successful, you do a very good job with listings, as George mentioned. If the listing is not on point, all this effort from a PPC is also going to make your life not only more difficult, but also expensive, because you're going to waste money on the wrong keywords. And finally, with the images, like, you can have the best keywords, guys, in terms of PPC and also your listing, and everything's very nice integrated. But if your images don't drive the click, you're pretty much dead, unfortunately, because the image is what gives the customer the opportunity to really feel, okay, is this actually what I'm looking to achieve out of my purchase? Because they cannot touch the product. So images, I would say, listings and making sure the product is on point is what is going to make sure your PPC essentially is not only an expense, but it's a vehicle towards success. Yeah.
Yeah, can I just also add as well, on top of everything that Vincenzo just mentioned, if you are going into a particular market where there's a good amount of sales across multiple ASINs, then it's easier to then take a small proportion of sales from a lot of different products, as it is to, if there's 2 or 3 big players with brand recognition that you're competing against. So that's also going to have an impact. So if depending on kind of what kind of market you're going into, So at some points PPC will be expensive, and other points they won't. They actually would just be really, really helpful. And PPC is expensive, but what we're finding is it's becoming more crucial as well. So it's not like a few years ago where you can just not use it. Now most of the search results page is PPC. If you're not doing it, then you're going to miss out on the most of the majority of people who are searching on Amazon that aren't going to scroll down. They're just going to look at the first few search results. So definitely something to bear in mind. So there's a whole load of components as well as the stuff Vincenzo mentioned, reviews too. So if you've just gone recently from a 4.5 to a 4.1, it's going to make everything else expensive. And what we've noticed is ultimately it all boils down to conversion rate. If you have a good conversion rate, we've seen certain products that we work with, because they have such a good conversion rate, they pay less to rank in position 1 than some people who are ranked position 2 and 3 for certain keywords. That's just how biased Amazon is with stuff like that. So really ensuring that you have a superior conversion rate. Something else that you can do as well with this to be a little bit smarter and savvy with your pay-per-click is, if you, like I mentioned in the slides, if you're reviewing the search query report weekly, there may be some trended terms that has just popped up. Not everyone's going to be looking at the search query data weekly. So if you're able to catch those terms fairly early, add them as keywords, and then generate sales on them, this will give you an edge. Like we had this particular client where we had this client who sells a carpet cleaning product. And then what we noticed is through search query data, he was getting phenomenal sales all of a sudden for people searching for sofa cleaning products, but coming across his product. So we were able to react, add those keywords in to begin with, and that was a quick win, but then also create an ASIN variation, change the product on packaging to have a sofa instead of carpets, promote it as a sofa as well. And it was the same ingredients. It worked well on sofas as well, and quick win. So yeah, with these things, it's always about trying to get in quick, not only with products, but also with trends.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, another question from Laura. At what point do you recommend creating variations and advertising only one of the ASINs? PPC is expensive and few can afford so many campaigns for all ASINs.
Yeah, it's gonna depend on whether you're gonna decide to have the ASIN under the parent. So you can have it all under one, or if that variation is going to sit outside on its own. So if it's going to sit as a child, then necessarily the PPC won't be that much more expensive, because only one of them will really be appearing. So I think the big benefit of having that additional ASIN will be, if you do decide to merge it into a child, is you're going to get the sales velocity from the honeymoon period, but also you can take advantage of reviews that you already have from your original ASIN. So that actually could work in your favor, especially at the beginning, to get more sales.
All right.
Yeah, I think also to add on this from my point for this question is that usually what you're gonna find is that it also depends on the opportunity of these variations. And what do I mean by that? If you identify that certain variations tend to have its own search volume exposure, for example, you are selling a water bottle and you identify that keywords have to do with the red color, have a high search volume, and also blue color, and also yellow, but maybe the white color and the black color are not actually as demanded. Therefore, what you want to do is you want to have historically an analysis and see which color is being, at least during the launch phase, giving you the most amount of orders, and that's the one you want to use for generic keywords, right? The ones that don't tailor to a specific color. Nevertheless, if you identify that all of your variation have a nice search volume at the color level, in this example I'm giving you, then you want to create tailored campaigns that target keywords with the color variation or the variation itself embedded. So if it's not color, it could be size. If it's not size, it could be quantity. If it's not quantity, it could be shape. So therefore, you tailor also your strategy toward the generic keywords, but with that specific variation on the main keyword that will make it even more niche, to make sure that you also get exposure for the variation that actually can have a high demand for the whole family and bring some traffic from those niche keywords to the main listing as well.
Great, thank you. We have a few more questions if you still have time. I'm launching new variant. Would be better to create new listing for the new variant and later merge it with the main product, or shall I create it directly as a variant?
So that kind of went into a little bit of what I mentioned just a minute ago. So if your main variant has a good average review count and review rating, so a good review count and a good average rating, there may be, you would lean more towards having it within that variant, because then you'll get kind of the benefits of the honeymoon period. Is kind of what I would say. I don't know, Vincenzo, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Yeah, so effectively, usually there's many ways you can go about that, and it also depends what you decide to do. For example, with Amazon Vine, right, which is something I briefly mentioned. Like usually, if you're launching multiple variations, right, and you want to get as many feedbacks as possible to your listings as you can, usually what I recommend is you keep all of your variations separated, and you can get your 30 reviews per variation. And then once you get your reviews, you merge them, because if you create all the family from day one and you activate Vine, by the time you trigger 30 reviews, some of their variations are going to lose the opportunity to trigger Amazon Vine. So that's the first thing from a review point of view. And the second thing is that the strategy also comes down to how the market is reacting in terms of dealing with variation. You're going to find niches where most of the top sellers don't have parents, but they have single listings. And usually the strategy behind this is real estate control, because the fact that you have listings on its own, that means you can pretty much monopolize a keyword. You can control the full page of a keyword, because when the listings are not part of a family, you can basically have all the same listings of the variation that are not part of an official family on the page one, which is not the case with a parent listing. So that also is going to basically answer your question. What is your strategy? What are your competitors doing? And if you have the budget to pretty much bring as many variations as possible to page one and get more real estate control, then usually that's the strategy I will go for. Yeah.
All right. We have a few more questions, 3 more. So Shavakat is asking, how should I structure my PPC campaigns to account for the different product variations, 2 to 4 variations?
Can you start with this one?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So effectively, what I recommend, when you have more than 2 4 variations, as you mentioned in this question, one of the things that has been super useful for me in these situations is I will have a look at what is happening with some of my competitors that may have the same kind of type of variations on their listings, and I will have a look at their reviews. Why? Because from the reviews, I'm going to have a look at what historically is being the variation that they're basically been selling the most. You're going to find usually a winner is a specific color, a specific bundle, X, Y, and Z. Once you identify that, if you're able to basically resemble what the competitor is doing with the offering that you have, you're going to have an educated guess. This is what we call it, right? You have some data, you do some kind of reverse engineering that something similar is going to happen to you based on data, and then you launch your campaigns with that, right? Then, of course, you let it run for a couple of weeks, see how that performs. If you see that specific variation is not performing as you wanted, then that's where we start then going back to the original strategy of pulling all the variations on the same campaign, letting it run for another few weeks, and then letting Amazon choose the winner, and then dissecting the ones that didn't work out of the campaign.
It also depends on the cycle that you're in as well. So if it's kind of a more established variations, then you should already have that data and understand which variations sell best. If it's fairly new, you may just want to be a bit more aggressive with the new variations you've created to see what they can do. So yeah, it just depends on that too.
Should I go?
Yeah.
For this one, guys, there is an interesting thing that you have to be mindful. I know this is a topic that maybe you haven't heard of, but for a fact, and because we have case studies that prove it, there's something called geo ranking. Okay, so why do I start the answer of this question with this? Inventory is also a big factor that can impact how your PPC perform, but also organic exposure. Why? And this is going back to the basics of logistics, right? Amazon, right, is here to make money, right? But if you don't put enough inventory on Amazon warehouses and you only send 100 units to Florida, right? But then a person in California is looking for that specific product, therefore Amazon is not going to prioritize your exposure on that region because logistically it's going to be very tough to promise prime delivery. Therefore, you're going to see that your organic is going to fluctuate based on regions. Now, why this is important fundamental for you to understand? Inventory can fluctuate not only how you perform from an organic perspective, but also from a PPC, because if you don't essentially make enough sales on those regions because of that, you're going to start losing your organic momentum. And on top of that, if you also go out of stock, which is the second vertical of why inventory is important, essentially you also lose the momentum of everything we've been talking. So inventory is important from two perspectives. The one that is more technical and applies more to medium to bigger sellers, which is enough inventory in hand to have full deploy across the country and have as much exposure as possible, but also from the perspective that you shouldn't go out of stock. If you go out of stock, you lose also the momentum of your PPC.
Yeah, can I just add to that as well? Really good point that you mentioned in terms of the different locations, especially if you're selling in the US, because what tends to happen as well is depending on where the order is made, if you don't have sufficient stock, it's going to impact whether that product can be delivered the same day, within 1 day or 2 day. So if you have good amount of inventory and Amazon is able to just distribute your product across different warehouses, which at this point, unfortunately, you cannot control, then it's likely to have a better impact on conversion rates. And you can actually see the low-hanging fruit here when you go into the search query data, and it will give you that information to show you, okay, what are how many people actually tapped into that opportunity? How many have actually were able to do the first day delivery, same day delivery, first day delivery, and 2-day delivery? So it's a catch-22 because there's high fees now if you just got inventory sitting there. But I mean, if you can in some way put in place good amount of inventory onto Amazon and it's able to get distributed, then it's going to definitely work towards your favor with PPC.
Cool. One more last question. I don't know if that was previously mentioned, but what's the recommendation for daily budget for PPC? How long is the string?
Yeah. I mean, like, so when we look at the launch campaign, we tend to work backwards. So we look at when we're doing a launch strategy, we tend to look backwards and go, right, okay, how many sales do I want to get? How much does it cost to get that sale, and how much is the average cost per click bid? If I know how much the average cost per click bid is, then I know how much I need to spend to get X amount of sales, right? So you can go down that route. And then this is going to give you a completely different answer for every type of product that you sell. But you can work backwards if you have access to the search query data to figure out roughly what budget do you need to have to make some dent. There's obviously going to be other variations that are going to impact the sales, but like that gives you some idea of how to put together a good budget.
Yeah, we say this is something, guys, that this question, to be honest, you should be doing this question to yourself before launching a product in the first place. Something I see a lot of sellers, unfortunately, having a struggle with is that when they do a product research, they only focus about demand, they only focus about how unique the product is, and things along those lines of, if the opportunity is there from a demand point of view. But the issue with this is that if you don't factor in what are the economics behind making the product successful, it's going to be tough for you to then figure out if you can actually afford the cash flow. Therefore, something that's super important, guys, and you need to do this from the very beginning, understand what is the average CPC on your specific category, specifically your top keywords. You can get this by many tools nowadays. And effectively, once you understand the CPC average, and then you compare that against your margins, as George is basically been describing, that's why you need to effectively understand, okay, based on this CPC and based on this basically cash I have put aside to launch this business, how many months I can advertise until I can reach break even and become profitable before I run out of money. So therefore, that is going to also be a heavy indicator to basically tell you if, beyond the fact that product is a very nice product to launch based on KPIs, if you can actually afford the cash flow intensity that it would require to be a successful basically launch.
Okay, thank you very much. Great session. And let's go quickly through what you do, how you help Amazon sellers. And I will share the screen as well with Vincenzo's page. So Vincenzo, that was actually the problem I was sharing in the backend.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
With your video, and I didn't realize
yeah.
I didn't hear anything, but there was automatic audio. So sorry about that.
So first of all, Augustus and the whole Orange Click team, it's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Just a little bit about myself. As I briefly said at the beginning, we specialize on doing full brand management for Amazon and Walmart. We also focus on expanding brands, not only in the main markets such as the US, but also we expand brands internationally, which is one of our main differentiators. And when it comes to offering, we do everything in-house. So we do PPC, listing optimization, creative, DSP, essentially all the full 360 approach that you might need as a business to successfully scale your brand into these two marketplaces. So feel free to book a call with us. I'm more than happy to jump with myself, my team, explore what are some of your obstacles, and making sure we can jump as a team and make it happen for you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincenzo. And George, Clear Ads.
Yeah, so we're an ads agency, been going for some time now, focusing mostly on Amazon and doing sponsored ads and DSP, and now kind of went into full service as well, and dabbling in paid social too. So that's kind of what we do. We are very big on trying to bring industry leaders, industry specialists in to kind of really keep on track and ahead of the game when it comes to the ever evolving Amazon. So website's clearadsagency.com. Feel free to reach out if you want to just even get an audit from us. Be happy to help. And thank you again. Thank you, Augustus, for putting this on, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share with your audience. And I hope you guys found some value. If you have any questions about anything we said, I'm sure Vincenzo, just as I am, would be happy to elaborate, even jump on a call just to go over anything else too.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much, guys. It was a pleasure. You will find the links to both George and Vincenzo's websites in the description. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
And if you enjoyed the session, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And now I invite you to watch more videos. Another video about PPC, which is quite popular on our YouTube channel. So you will get more strategies, more ideas how you can adjust your PPC campaigns and get more sales. So check this out.